Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the last Teen Take and Make kit of this season for Manlius Library. After today, it'll be summer programming. Registration for all of that has begun, and you can find all that information on our website at manliuslibrary.org. Some things do require registration, so pop on over there and see what we've got going on. For today, if you received your kit, you will have received a small paper bag of shredded paper, 3 little ice cream scoop spoon things, 3 colors of paint, yellow, turquoise, and red, a baggie of clear glue. And I'll be honest, this was as much an experiment for the baggie as it is materials for the craft. So we're going to see how that, they seem to have held up nicely. 3 plastic cups. We're going to actually set the paint and the glue and the cups aside. And a half of a report protector. That's what this is. It's just one of those plastic page protectors. A half sheet and a paintbrush. And this little paper baggie is full of wildflower seeds. So for the first part of this, the first thing we're going to do is make the seed bombs. So for that, you need your shredded paper and your little paper packet of seeds. So I'm actually going to set this stuff all aside, and we will revisit that when it's time to make sun catchers. For the seed bombs, you will also need a bowl of some sort. This is a good size. Any kind of bowl will work. A fork. And if you have one, a small hold strainer will make this easier. You can absolutely do this without one of these, and I'll show you how. But this will make this project a whole lot easier. You'll also need about 2 cups of water, give or take. Okay, we're going to set the seed packet aside for now because we don't want the seeds to get wet ahead of time. And our first step is, we're going to set that aside. Our first step is to dump the paper into the bowl. Okay? And if you wanted to, you could tear up the little paper bag and actually add that right to the mix as well. You want to tear it up into pretty small pieces. If you're doing this at home and you haven't gotten a kit, any kind of non-shiny paper will work. You could use newspaper. You can use old copy paper. It's the end of the school year. If you've got papers that can be shredded or that you would just recycle anyways, you can use that. Any kind of regular paper will do. So we're just going to put that in the bowl. We're going to cover it with water. This is a project that takes a little while. Now, there is a shortcut to this. If you have a blender and someone who will let you use and or help you use the blender, you can do this in the blender. And it takes a fraction of the amount of time. Okay, so we want to make sure that our paper is all covered in water. All right. What this is going to do is break, and you can see the color is starting to come out of it. This is going to break down the paper, and it's going to kind of become pulp, which is what paper is made of. This is also a really great way to make homemade paper. Oh, it's working really quickly. You can let the colored paper might take a little bit longer to break down. You can see that the white copy paper is already starting to break down. As I said, any kind of paper will work. You just don't want to use that shiny, like magazine paper. That won't work. You can use your fingers. You can use the fork. This is the point if you wanted to put it in the blender. Please make sure that's okay with the adult in your house, because this can gum up the works of a blender. So if you have a really good blender, you might not want to risk it. But if you have an old craft blender sitting around, This will not work with a stick blender. Trust me, I tried. Okay, so we're just gonna let that keep working it till it kind of becomes like a mush, almost like old oatmeal, which is kind of gross. But so this is actually how you would make homemade paper out of recycled paper. And that is hopefully going to be a craft we do this fall. Okay, just kind of breaking it up, mushing it around. You want to get it to the point where it's really no longer recognizable as shreds of paper. You want it just to kind of be a mass of grossness. It's kind of cool though. Okay, I'll get in there with my fingers and really mush it around. If your bag does not have colored paper in it, I just shredded what I had available. Some people got some colored paper in theirs and some didn't. If your bag doesn't have colored paper and you want there to be color in your seed balls, you can absolutely add a drop of food coloring. Or if you have some colored paper hanging around, you can cut or tear up a piece of that real small. The smaller, the easier. You could do this with just a sheet of paper, but it would take forever. And add it to the mix, and that will color your seed ball. If you were doing this with individual packets of seeds and you wanted to know what the seeds were, you could absolutely color code it. Like if you have sunflower seeds, you could make those yellow paper. And if you have chrysanthemums, you could make them orange paper. And daisies could be blue paper, etc. Okay, so see how it's kind of coming together like a mush? It's still got a little ways to go. If it feels like the water is being absorbed and there's just not enough to really mush it through, you can always add more water. One thing I didn't mention is it's always a good idea to keep a damp cloth on hand so you can get the pulp off your fingers. All right, I'm going to go grab just a little bit more water. And, ooh, no fuzz in there. And we'll be ready to make it into seed balls. Okay, I added just a little bit more water to it. Some of the strings are still You can also put the water in with the paper and get it started, kind of mush it around, make sure there's enough water to cover it completely. Set it aside and let the water do its work without you doing this. It takes quite a bit longer. And if you don't want to touch it, you can always just do this with a fork. Just keep stirring and mushing around. It really does just kind of look like pink oatmeal. Okay. Set that aside. Yeah, there we go. There's still some little bits of paper in there, but that'll just give it some texture. This is absolute mush. And I think we're ready to move on to the next step, which is scooping it all out. Now you're going to have some little bits of pulp in the bottom of your bowl. If you have a second bowl that you can drain this into, actually, I didn't think that through. I'm going to go grab another bowl. So if you have another bowl that is at least the same size, maybe a little bigger even. Okay, so I got a second bowl. And I'm just going to set the strainer across. Like I said, if you don't have a strainer, you can absolutely squeeze this out by hand. And I'll show you. You can just take it and just gently squeeze the water out. Okay? Until it's still fairly wet, but not dripping with water. Okay? So we'll put that in the strainer. And we're just gonna do this. This is a messy job. You'll notice I've covered my workspace. Okay, and you can just kind of see, you can push and it'll get the water out. Keeping the pulp, you want to keep it wet because you do want it to be almost like clay because we're going to mix the seeds in with it. Okay, I'm just going to pour the rest of this. But if you have a really small hold strainer, like I used here, it'll strain out the water and really, for the most part, keep the pulp, which is what you want. It's at this point that you would lay this out on a cookie sheet or a piece of tin foil and push it real flat, and then you could make paper. We'll be doing that in the fall, hopefully in person. Very much looking forward to getting back to some in-person programming. Okay, so then we've just kind of got this mass of wet paper clay. Okay, good. The more water you get out, the harder it's going to be to mix the seeds in, but also the sooner they'll dry so that you can actually throw them out into your yard or your garden or your yard or your garden. Okay, I'm going to take care of the strainer and the water. Okay, so now I've got just the paper clay. It's kind of all mushy. I'll break it up a little bit. Could have actually let this go a little bit longer, but I think that this will be all right. Okay, and we're going to open our seeds. And if you shake it a little bit, the seeds will all go to the bottom of the bag, and then you can just tear the top off the bag. And everybody's got a different mix. They are northeastern native wildflowers. Most are going to be annuals, which means they'll come back this year, and then they will maybe self-seed and come back next year. Some are perennials, which means they will self-seed and come back next year. So we're going to sprinkle some seeds in here. Everything in this little bag is a seed. Even this little, well, not that, that's big. But even the stuff that looks like dust that's left on my hand, even that is seeds. Okay? So let's get those seeds in there. Now, if you look up online on how to do seed balls or seed bombs or whatever they're calling, whatever different places call them, you will see suggestions to take them and just throw them anywhere. but I would please ask that you make sure you're throwing them somewhere you're allowed to. Like I said, your backyard, in your garden. Ask your neighbors, okay? Before you go and throw it in somebody else's garden, you want to make sure you ask. I'm going to actually add just a smidge of water back into that because we want it to be like a clay. Okay. Work that all out. Okay. So now we've got our seeds mixed in, and I will, at the end of this, your bowl will still, in your hands, will still have seeds stuck to it probably. But I'll tell you what you can do with that after. So we're going to take a little bit. It can be whatever size you want it. And just kind of form it into a ball. You don't want to squeeze all of the water out. Okay, so now we've got a seed ball. We're just going to set this aside and let it dry completely. It takes a good 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours for them to dry completely. And you can make these as big or as small as you want. I got the idea for this from a little tin of seed balls that somebody gave me. And they were tiny. They were just little bitty, smaller than this even. But they're little bitty seed balls. So you can make them whatever size you want. The other thing you could do is if you have little cookie cutters, you could stuff the seed ball, this stuff into it and make shapes if you wanted to. I'm just making seed balls though. Okay. I'll just set them aside. It's kind of like making meatballs or cookies. The pink looks more like meatballs than cookies, but. And some of your bigger seeds will fall off if they're on the outside. That's okay. You can set these on the counter or on a cookie sheet or wherever out of the way so that they'll dry. And as I said, you can see, I'm going to mix that little one back in here so we have fairly even. This one will be a little bit smaller. I'm going to squish it together so it really feels like it's holding. Another thing you can do is when you get this close to the pulp point, you can mix in some non-toxic clay, not Play-Doh, but like air dry clay. We used it when we did the DIY magic wands, that kind of air dry clay. You can mix that in and it will help hold it together a little bit better. But I've tested this and I really like how it works just with the paper and the water. So when you're all done, you'll notice you've got seeds on your hands and seeds on the bowl. You just take it to the sink and gently rinse your hands off into the bowl. Add water so that all the seeds are down in the water. And then you can just toss the water out into your garden and that will throw some seeds out there too. It may very well be that the birds get these seeds because they're just going to land on top of the water or soil with nothing to protect them, but okay, I'm going to go rinse off my hands and this bowl. I'll be right back. Okay, so I got this little baking dish. It's perfect. And I put my seed balls in that. If you set it in a window, they'll dry quicker. And once they're dry, you can throw them out, like I said, into your yard, into your garden, or check with your neighbors. Maybe they want you to seed bomb their garden or their yard. and then you can watch the flowers grow. All right, I'm going to clean this up and I'll be right back, and we will make window cling sun catchers. All right, I've got cleaned up from the first project, and now we're ready for the second one. For that, you're going to need the rest of your supplies. The little baggie of clear glue, your paintbrush, your little, these are going to be your stirrers, your 3 colors of paint, and your 3 plastic cups. And this clear, this is going to be your palette, basically, for when we make this sun catcher, or the sun catcher. You will also need maybe a pen or a marker. You will need a pair of scissors, a cup of water, and a damp cloth. Okay, so what we're doing is making sun catchers. I'm going to set this aside for a second. And we're going to set our 3 cups up. And what we're going to do is squeeze the glue away from one of the corners of this and cut the end off. Okay, we'll cut the end off. Whoop, we don't want that in our cup. I knew that was going to happen. Okay, leave your scissors open. Wipe them on the damp cloth. We're going to revisit those once we've put the glue in the cups, but you don't want the glue to dry on the scissors. Okay? So what you're going to do is squeeze out in approximate equal portions into the 3 cups. You're going to squeeze out the glue. It doesn't have to be exact. This is not an exact science. So, and if you have other colors of acrylic paint that you would like to use, this would absolutely stretch to 4 cups. Okay. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exact. The reason we're using clear glue and not regular white school glue, this is just regular old clear school glue. The kind of stuff you use in slime. Okay. And the reason we're using clear glue, and like, as I said, instead of school glue, is this will make it look like stained glass. If you want to do it with white school glue, you can, but it'll give it more of a beach glass translucent look rather than the bright shiny clear color of stained glass. Okay, so now we've got, I've thrown away the glue, the baggie with the glue in it, and now we're going to take, before we go any further, we're going to take our scissors, which we've left open, and we're going to very carefully wipe off both of those legs of the scissors. Leave them open, set them aside, and let them dry. Okay? That way they won't stick closed when that glue, if that glue dries. All right. So now we're going to take our 3 colors. I've got fuzz. Okay. We're going to open up our little, and now that I've made seed bombs or seed balls, every time I see little things of paper like this, I think, I could recycle that into a seed ball. So we've got our 3. We're going to just empty the paint into the cups of glue. There's yellow. Scrape as much of that out of there as you can. Okay. And red. If you have acrylic paints at home that you do this with, and they're the thicker acrylic paints, it's not a bad idea to add just a smidge of water to bring them down to this texture. For this project, I like to use the more liquid acrylics. I haven't started painting yet. I've already got paint on me. Okay, and then blue. I really liked these colors for summer. I think they'll look lovely together. But as I said, you're welcome to use any colors that you like. If you're doing this from home and you didn't pick up a kit, like I said, this is just regular clear school glue. We just have a regular paintbrush, and you could use wax paper, or tinfoil would leave kind of a film on it, so I wouldn't recommend that. But you could use parchment paper, you could use cling wrap. It's a little harder to work with, but you can. Or anything that's flat and plastic. A paper plate, a plastic plate. Not a paper plate, a plastic plate. Okay, so we're gonna stir these up, and you wanna stir them up pretty well. You want that to be nice and blended. Okay. I'm using the pointed side down so I can get the glue that's down in the bottom. Okay. All right, so we'll set those aside for a second. Now, the reason I like to use something clear like this is because you can take a piece of paper and put it underneath it with a design on it, and that becomes your outline without actually writing on this. Or in this case, I've got my table. I could, let's set these aside. If I wanted to do, no, I don't want to go too big here. But if I wanted to do a heart, I could draw the heart on my table paper and kind of use that as a guide. I think I will. All right. Now, you want to make sure to wash your brush off really well between colors, because the glue in the paint is going to help that paint stick to the brush. So I'm actually gonna take out the little spoons. Now you can paint whatever design you want. You could do the sun, you could do a flower, you could do an abstract. You could do anything you want. The one thing to keep in mind is when this is all dry, you're going to peel it off and it becomes a window cling that'll stick to a window, and you can put it on the window and take it off and put it someplace else and take it off. So you want to make sure that all of your pieces connect. So if you do a flower, in fact, maybe I'll do that. I'm going to get a piece of white paper and I'll do a flower and show you what I mean. Okay, so for example, if we're going to do a daisy, okay, and put this on here. You want to make sure that all these little pieces are touching and that there isn't one that's not touching. So you wouldn't want to do a daisy like this. They look cool, but if you peel that off, it'll all be in little pieces. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, I'm going to stick with my heart. And your imagination is your only limit. Put my water over here. adjust this just a little, and whoop, sorry about that. All right. The key to this is smooth, even strokes. You don't want to start too thick. I think what I'm going to do is tape this right to the paper. This is perfect because you can see what happens to the glue as it starts to dry initially. You can see that it pulls away from itself and kind of leaves little holes, which is fine because after a minute you go back in and you fill those in. Okay. Now, as I said, you want to really rinse your brush and wipe it off between colors, unless you're just going to blend colors. If you're going to blend colors, you don't have to worry quite so much about it. But normally, if I'm rinsing my brush with acrylics, that would have come all right off, but it didn't. So we need to use the cloth to get the colors out because it's got glue. Okay. And we're going to do that. And like I said, make sure your colors all touch. You can always go back in and fill in. This usually is a 2 or 3 step process for me. You let it dry a little bit and then you go back in with more paint. You let it dry a little more and you go back in with more paint until you get it exactly how you want it. You could use a larger piece of plastic and just pour the paint on and make it a true abstract sun catcher. Keep in mind that this paint looks pretty opaque right now, but as the paint dries, the glue dries clear and shiny. And so it will actually be a sun catcher. And it would look lovely in a window. Since I'm just using that as a guide, I'm not going to worry a whole lot about sticking to it. Okay. I think I'm just going to The thicker your paint, the longer it will take for this to dry completely. And this is one that needs to dry completely before you can peel it off. But the thicker paint also makes for a much sturdier sun catcher and one that's easier to peel off and on. I think I'm just going to pour a little bit of paint on there. Yeah. It can be difficult to get this glue to keep its shape. It tends to shrink in and spread out as it's drying. So quite often you'll have to go back and touch up an edge as well as add some paint to the middle. So. Okay, I think we'll add just a smidge of red on the outside. Okay. I don't know if you can hear the birds chirping, but I'm actually in my sunroom at my house right now, and the birds are very active. Okay, I'm gonna let that sit and dry. At this point, you want to really wash your brush off well. I'm actually going to take it to the sink and use a little bit of soap and get the glue out of it. So, but I will be back and I'll revisit it. I can see that there's already places that I'm going to want to fill in. To continue to use your glue, just take a couple pieces of plastic wrap and put over each one. You don't even really need to seal it because it'll stay dry. You just want to cover it in plastic wrap, and that'll keep the paint good for continuing on to use it. Okay, so I'll be back as this dries. Okay, so it's been drying for a little while, and there are certain spots. Let me see if I can get that close enough for you to see. There are certain spots right in through here. It's easier to see in person that are, and also over on this side a little bit, that are very thin. And so what I'm going to do is take my paint, which I just, as you can see, I just covered it with plastic wrap. But I'm going to take my paint and I'm going to fill in those spots so that they're a little thicker. Because thicker is easier to peel on and off the window, and also it's actually just easier to peel on and off this piece of plastic. So I'm going to fill that in with a little bit more paint. So as you can see, it's not a bad idea to kind of keep an eye on this as it dries. I mean, not a constant eye, but it is now time lapse. Been several hours since I did this morning, or this afternoon. Okay, so there's that. And actually, the other thin spot is over here, and I think I'm just going to put in some yellow. The edges seem to be holding fairly well. As it dries, you might notice some bubbles forming. You can go through before it dries completely and pop those. I don't really mind the look of bubbles in these because it gives it a real natural look. So there we go. That's actually, maybe my red is a little bit thin too, so I think I'm gonna add a little bit more of that. I wrapped this red up very well. Ah, there we go. Okay. Okay, so I'll clean up my brush. That looks pretty good. All right, I'll clean up my brush and we'll be back when this is completely dry. Alrighty, I've let this dry all day and it's not at all tacky anymore. So I'm going to show you. It's really simple to just peel up off the plastic. And you'll see that one side is super shiny, and that side will stick to a window. You can see, I'll show you by me putting that back on there, will stick to a window and be a window decoration or a sun catcher, okay? Our seed balls are not dry yet. They've only been drying for about 12 hours, and they are going to take about 24 to 48 hours to dry completely before you can toss them out into your yard or garden. So I hope that you enjoyed the crafts that we did today, the window clings and the seed balls, and I'd love to see pictures of everything that you've made since we started these. This is the last of the Teen Take and Makes for this season. Registration for all summer programming has begun, and you can pop over to our website at manliuslibrary.org and get more information about that and sign up for the programs. We've got some STEAM kits coming. We've got some craft kits. There's going to be art in the garden, which is actually live and in person. And you can sign up for all that at our website. Thanks for joining me. It's been a great time doing crafts with you, and I hope we'll see you over the summer. My name is Lori. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting. Hi everybody, it's Lori coming to you from the Teen Room to tell you a little bit about what's coming up for teens and tweens this summer. We have a summer reading program. Registration will start on June 1st. You can pop over to our website anytime starting then to sign up and then start reading. For every 100 minutes that you read or every book that you read, you'll earn a raffle ticket for the grand prize drawings at the end of the summer. And there's also prize levels throughout the summer as you reach different goals. You can pick up one of these flyers in the teen room, the children's room, or pretty much anywhere in the library that has all of the information on the inside about the summer reading program. We also have some great events going on this summer for teens and tweens. Trivia is moving to Monday afternoons, and it will be live via Zoom on Kahoot, and there'll be a different topic every week. The top score for that will win a gift card, so sign up for that on our calendar, or you can send me an email at lfinger@manliuslibrary.org for the link to join that. Teen Book Tuesday will continue on YouTube every Tuesday at 2:30, and that's me talking to you about all of the great books that we're getting in to the teen room, and also some maybe teen bookish news and other great things about teen books. Wednesdays is a new program. It's Art in the Garden. It's live and in person, and it's outdoors. Registration for that is very limited and is absolutely required. So you can pop over to our website and sign up for that beginning on June 1st. Steam to Go is going to be live on Zoom, or you can just follow along on YouTube at your own pace, and you can sign up for those kits starting June 1st as well. Something new this year is break-in bags. It's kind of like an escape room, but to go. You get a bag, it's full of stuff, you solve the puzzles, you open the lock and you get the goodies inside, you bring it back and you can get the next one. And then finally, Teens Relax and Craft, which are just grab and go bags of crafts, a different one every week, because it's been a long year and sometimes we just need to relax and craft. So that's some of the great programs that are going on this summer. Now, we also have a brand new Virtual Valentines. I hope you can see this because it's not too shiny. Virtual Valentines, because one of the best things about the teens in Manlius is they love to volunteer, and you guys are so helpful. So if you go over to our website at manliuslibrary.org or come into the library, the flyer actually has a QR code, and there's even an insert in the Teen Summer Reading Booklet that you can sign up with. And all of our volunteering has gone virtual. It is limited to ages 12 to 18, but you can earn community service hours that you need maybe for graduation or High Honor Society or any of those groups and clubs that you join that require hours, or just because you love the library and you want something to do. So that's Virtual Valentines. And you can always visit the interactive teen room with me and links to everything that I just told you about and more, including new teen books, different databases, and information about our continuing curbside pickup service. And that's at tinyurl.com/manliusteens. So there's some information about what's going on this summer. If you have any questions about it, you can always email me at lfinger@manliuslibrary.org or pop in, visit, say hi. We'd love to see you. We've missed you. We're looking forward to a great summer. Happy reading.